Imagine this. You promise yourself that tomorrow you'll wake up early. You'll exercise. You'll work on that skill. You'll finally start changing your life. But morning comes. Your alarm rings, and without thinking, you hit snooze. Later, you tell yourself you'll start after breakfast. Then after lunch. Then tomorrow. And at the end of the day, you feel guilty, but also strangely relieved. Relieved because you stayed comfortable. Most people think this is laziness or a lack of discipline. But that's not the truth. Your brain didn't fail you. It did exactly what it was designed to do. Because your brain doesn't care about your dreams. It cares about comfort and survival. Thousands of years ago, success didn't mean growth, ambition, or achievement. Success meant staying alive. Comfort meant safety. Discomfort meant danger. And even though the world has changed, your brain hasn't. That's why growth feels uncomfortable. That's why change feels painful. That's why staying stuck feels strangely safe. To understand this, we need to look at how the brain actually works. Neuroscientists agree on one thing. The brain's primary job is survival, not success. The brain evolved to avoid pain, conserve energy, and seek familiarity. In early human history, unfamiliar situations often meant death. A new environment could hide predators. A risky decision could cost your life. So the brain learned a simple rule. If something feels familiar, it's safe. That rule still controls your decisions today. Psychologists Daniel Kahneman and Amos Tversky discovered something called loss aversion. Their research showed that humans feel the pain of loss about twice as strongly as the pleasure of gain. In other words, your brain would rather avoid losing what it already has than risk discomfort for something better. This is why people stay in jobs they hate. This is why people stay in unhealthy relationships. This is why people stay stuck in routines that slowly drain them. Because known pain feels safer than unknown reward. Your brain thinks, at least I know this pain. The future is uncertain. Your brain is also incredibly focused on saving energy. Even though it's only about 2% of your body weight, it consumes around 20% of your energy. Because of this, the brain prefers habits over thinking, routines over effort, and shortcuts over growth. Learning new skills, changing behavior, or building discipline requires extra energy. So your brain resists it. That resistance feels like procrastination, fear, self-doubt, and overthinking. But in reality, it's just your brain trying to protect its energy. Deep inside your brain is a structure called the amygdala. Its job is to detect threats. The problem is that your amygdala cannot tell the difference between a real physical threat and an emotional one. So when you speak in public, start something new, take responsibility, or step outside your comfort zone, your brain reacts as if you're in danger. Stress hormones rise. Fear feels real. Your body wants to escape, even though nothing is actually wrong. Now let's look at how this shows up in real life. Think about someone who hates their job. They complain every day. They feel exhausted and unfulfilled. But they never leave. Not because they love the job, but because the paycheck is familiar. The routine is predictable. A new job might fail. Psychologists call this predictable pain. And the brain always prefers predictable pain over uncertain growth. Or think about procrastination. Most people believe procrastination means you don't care. But research shows procrastination is actually about emotional avoidance. Your brain avoids tasks that trigger fear of failure, fear of judgment, or fear of effort. So instead, it chooses scrolling, videos, sleep, or distraction. Not because those things are important, but because they provide immediate comfort. Your brain chooses short-term relief over long-term reward. Change itself also threatens identity. When you try to improve, your brain asks dangerous questions. Who will you become? What if you fail? What if people judge you? Even positive change feels unsafe to the brain. That's why people sabotage diets, quit when progress begins, or return to old habits. The brain prefers a familiar identity over an unfamiliar version of success. This is also why motivation fades so quickly. Motivation comes from emotion, and emotion doesn't last. Once excitement disappears, discomfort appears. At that moment, your brain faces a choice: stay uncomfortable and grow, or return to comfort and safety. Without understanding this, comfort almost always wins. Here's the most important truth to remember. Discomfort does not mean danger. It means learning, growth, and adaptation. But your brain interprets discomfort as a threat. Success feels uncomfortable because it requires energy, uncertainty, and responsibility. Comfort feels safe because it requires none of those things. Your brain choosing comfort doesn't mean you're weak. It means you're human. The people who succeed are not special. They simply understand this internal conflict. They don't wait for comfort to disappear. They act despite it. Because the moment you realize that fear does not mean danger, but growth, you stop obeying every signal your brain sends. And that's when real change begins. If this helped you understand your mind better, subscribe to Behavior Decoded. Because once you understand how your brain works, you stop being controlled by it.